Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
If you're considering an Accord or Camry, consider Car and Driver magazine's report on the Mitsubishi Galant after a special 30,000-mile test. They called it an ideal car for a deep and meaningful long-term relationship, adding that over 30,000 miles, not a single thing went wrong with the Galant. That's right, nothing. Nothing went wrong. How many long-term relationships can you say that about?
Get a $1,000 rebate at your Houston area Mitsubishi Motors dealer now.
The weather is clear and the astronauts are ready for their launch this morning at Cape Canaveral on Discovery. Let's go live now to Catherine Smith down at the Cape. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Bob. The weather is looking beautiful. It's looking now that they are coming up on the 2-minute mark as they count down through this launch this morning. Let's tell you a little bit about the crew that's on board. The commander of the flight is Colonel Lawrence Shriver. He has flown before. The pilot of this mission, Colonel Charles Bolden. This is also his second flight. He was on a flight in 1986, just before the Challenger accident. The mission specialist is Steve Hawley. This will be his third flight, and he has been through numerous scrubs as he's tried to make that flight. Another mission specialist is Kathy Sullivan, also making her second flight. She's a geologist by training. And then Captain Bruce McCandless. This will also be his second flight, and he was the first astronaut to fly through space in that astronaut backpack unit. So they are all on board, all veterans flyers, as we come up on 1 minute and 30 seconds from launch here this morning. On board is that Hubble Space Telescope that we have heard so much about, a magnificent machine that could see a firefly from 10,000 miles away. Once it gets up there above the Earth's atmosphere, it will spend 15 years sending back images of our universe, which should amaze and astound us, teaching us things that we can't even imagine at this point. Coming up on here on just 1 minute before launch, the weather looks gorgeous.
Sound suppression water system is now being armed, which will flow water onto the mobile launcher platform at the rate of 900,000 gallons a minute, beginning at T-minus 16 seconds.
NASA's George Diller will be calling the launch this morning as we get down into the final crucial seconds before launch. When we get to 31 seconds before launch, the shuttle's onboard computers will take over, making the last second decisions that will determine whether the shuttle launches this morning or not. And they are holding at the T-minus 31 second mark. A sigh of disappointment here in the crowd as we wait to see what the problem is that has held up the count here.
Due to the system failure.
And NTS needs the LO2 outboard cylinder drain valve. NTD CNPL. Go ahead. That's LCC NTS 8. And PV9 outboard cylinder drain closed power is off. It should be on. No recommendation.
Again, this is the point at which they will not start the onboard computers unless everything is going as planned. They've had some kind of failure in the system, waiting by.
We're in a no good situation. We should have open power, and we do not.
You heard that right now in a no-go situation.
And yes, we verify that the valve is closed. Negative. We right now show a open position. We cannot verify the valve is closed.
Troubleshooting a problem with the valve at this point.
We have the closed power on and the open position on. We can select cycle one time to pick up the closed position, but we will pick up the closed power.
They do have 2.5 hours from now with which to try to get this launch off this morning. That's how long the crew can stay on board on their back once they get inside.
The ground launch sequencer would not hand off to the orbiter's computers to complete the count because the liquid oxygen cylinder drain valve was showing off when it should be on.
That was NASA's George Diller explaining the problem, the valve which allows the liquid oxygen fuel to flow into the shuttle.
The problem has begun.
They are analyzing that problem right now, but as he indicated, it was showing that that valve was closed when it should have been open.
Catherine, this is Bob. Can you hear me?
We have 7
Yes.
minutes of runtime.
The last time this happened was exactly 2 weeks ago today when the shuttle got down to within 4 minutes of launch time and it was put on hold and ultimately scrubbed. Any feel for what kind of problem they're having right now?
They are...
There's the confirmation that we have successfully recycled.
They are going to pick up the countdown here this morning, Bob. Sorry for not answering your question. Some real-time decisions being made here.
Okay.
They're picking up the countdown. We're 29 seconds from launch, a huge cloud. Let's listen as George Diller calls the launch.
Booster hydraulic power units have started.
Sound suppression water system has started. T-minus 13 seconds. T-minus 10, go for main engine start. We are go for main engine start, T-minus 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery with the Hubble Space Telescope, our window on the universe.
Mission Control, Houston.
And control is now switching over to mission control there in Houston. Discovery roaring her way to space with that magnificent space telescope on board. The sound just starting to hit here at the Kennedy Space Center. You can almost feel it feeding you back. Once in space, the astronauts will begin a very busy day of preparations to deploy that Hubble Space Telescope. The actual deployment of Hubble won't start until tomorrow, though.
All 3 engines now throttle back up. Engines out.
But a very exciting launch here. Came down to the 31-second point, and it looked like they were going to hold because of a problem with an oxygen fuel valve. They were able to troubleshoot that problem, fix it, and then launch within just moments late this morning. Now 1 minute and 30 seconds into flight, coming up on the point, that crucial point that we all wait for so much since the Challenger accident, when the solid rocket boosters will separate from the shuttle. And then the main engines will carry it on for the 8-minute flight to orbit. Again, the Hubble Space Telescope, a magnificent machine which will tell us so much about our universe. Astronomers have been waiting 15 years for this launch. They had a sigh here this morning as they thought things might have been held up. Standing by for booster separation.
And both solid rocket boosters have separated. Discovery's velocity now 4,300 feet.
And a round of applause went up here at the Cape as you could see those boosters separate and start to fall away from the shuttle. They will drift back to the ocean where they will be picked up and examined.
Discovery Houston, performance is nominal.
And that's a very good call, meaning that everything is going normal with this flight to space. The 5 astronauts will have a very, very busy mission in space. Astronaut Steve Hawley will have the difficult job of deploying the Hubble Space Telescope. It's a tricky job because he's got to attach the robot arm to the telescope and then slowly lift it out of the cargo bay. Not a lot of room for error there. They will also have astronauts Kathy Sullivan and Bruce McCandless standing by, ready to suit up in spacesuits if there's some problem with the telescope that they would need an emergency spacewalk to repair it. The telescope has been designed so that they can do all sorts of repairs in space, because when you spend $1.5 billion on that telescope, they want to get it up there and operational. The plan is that it would send back its first picture of the universe within about 7 days. That would be just a picture to help focus the telescope. Then it will spend several months getting it up to operation before they turn it over to the scientists. And again, it will spend 15 years at least beaming back images of the universe that should provide all kinds of clues, possibly even find some other planets out there and galaxies that we don't even know about at this point. That telescope is so powerful that it's 10 times more powerful than any of the telescopes here on Earth. Let's tell you a little bit about the telescope and some of the amazing things that it can do. You can think of the Hubble Space Telescope as a time machine. It will capture the glow from stars so distant that their light has been traveling toward Earth since shortly after the beginning of the universe. We will be looking back in time, seeing the star as it was when the light first started its journey.
We will be able to look back up to 10 billion light years and see what galaxies look like. The exciting thing is, we hope we see some evolution. We hope to see they're different. But we have no idea what we'll see.
Astronomers will see the universe 10 times more clearly than they can with ground-based telescopes. That's because Hubble will orbit above the haze of Earth's atmosphere. Images that are now blurred will come into sharper focus.
We'll be like the little nearsighted child in the classroom that is given a pair of glasses and at last can see what the teacher has been writing on the blackboard.
The Space Telescope is so powerful it could see a flashlight on the moon. It could tell if a nickel is heads or tails from 6 miles away. What that means for astronomy is mind-boggling. There are an estimated 100 billion galaxies in the universe, and yet we know only one reasonably well, our own Milky Way. Space Telescope could solve the mystery of how galaxies form and even find unknown planets.
Space Telescope represents the single biggest leap in astronomical viewing capability since Galileo put a telescope to his eye. With that kind of capability, strange new things are going to be discovered.
Scientists have been waiting more than a decade for the launch of Space Telescope. Among them is Rice University professor Bob Odell, who spent 11 years with NASA as the telescope program's chief scientist. What will the telescope find? Dr. Odell compares it to the voyage of Christopher Columbus.
Columbus didn't know that he was going to find a new world on that voyage, but he knew something interesting was going to happen because he was genuinely exploring. That's what we're doing, genuinely exploring.
And as the Hubble Space Telescope explores, we will learn more about our universe and our place among the cosmos. And that magnificent space telescope is now on the way to orbit as Discovery continues her trip to space. Let's show you what the liftoff looked at one last time this morning. It was a beautiful liftoff. As the weather held, they had a last-second problem with an oxygen valve, but they were able to troubleshoot that and lift off just moments late. A gorgeous, gorgeous sight and a big sigh of relief and a big cheer from the crowd here. 2 weeks ago, we had the scrub. Many people were sitting here this morning thinking, oh no, that's going to happen again, but it didn't. As Discovery magnificently left off the launch pad and is now making her way to orbit. Bob, so again, the news here from Florida, very good this morning as Discovery prepares to get into orbit, and they will get down to the work of putting that Hubble Space Telescope into orbit.
Thank you, Catherine Smith, reporting live from Cape Canaveral. We'll have an update report on the mission and the Hubble Telescope coming up at 11 o'clock on nearly noon. We will now rejoin NBC for regular programming.
Look at me enjoying corn on the cob. Thanks to Super Polygrip. With dentures, I thought I'd have to give up corn on the cob. But thanks to Super Polygrip, I still enjoy my favorite food.
While denture wearers can't eat everything, Super Polygrip forms a seal that holds dentures tight.
Look at me, enjoying corn.
Thanks to Super Polygrip, many denture wearers enjoy more of their favorite foods.
Billy, you're in big trouble. Look at that stain. Mom will make you stand for 6 weeks, maybe even 6 years.
You can't treat those tough laundry stains if you don't see them. No wonder so many ended up in the dryer, set for life. But today, Biz Bleach, added with your detergent, powers out many stains you don't see before it's too late.
So, Billy, what'd Mom say about your shirt? Nothing.
Biz gets the stains that get by you.
This is Channel 2. KPRC TV. We now join our regularly...
Patty, can you hear us? Bill, can you hear us? I'll tell you what, while we work on they're getting their audio together, I'll just give you a little bit more detail about what this is, because this is a problem that many small towns across America have to deal with. The fact is that the shopping mall, has caused so many downtown areas to lose its vitality, and so people have been going out to the malls and not shopping downtown. We'll try to...
Nothing went wrong. How many long-term relationships can you say that about?
Get a $1,000 rebate at your Houston area Mitsubishi Motors dealer now.
The weather is clear and the astronauts are ready for their launch this morning at Cape Canaveral on Discovery. Let's go live now to Catherine Smith down at the Cape. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Bob. The weather is looking beautiful. It's looking now that they are coming up on the 2-minute mark as they count down through this launch this morning. Let's tell you a little bit about the crew that's on board. The commander of the flight is Colonel Lawrence Shriver. He has flown before. The pilot of this mission, Colonel Charles Bolden. This is also his second flight. He was on a flight in 1986, just before the Challenger accident. The mission specialist is Steve Hawley. This will be his third flight, and he has been through numerous scrubs as he's tried to make that flight. Another mission specialist is Kathy Sullivan, also making her second flight. She's a geologist by training. And then Captain Bruce McCandless. This will also be his second flight, and he was the first astronaut to fly through space in that astronaut backpack unit. So they are all...
Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
If you're considering an Accord or Camry, consider Car and Driver magazine's report on the Mitsubishi Galant after a special 30,000-mile test. They called it an ideal car for a deep and meaningful long-term relationship, adding that over 30,000 miles, not a single thing went wrong with the Galant. That's right, nothing.
On board, all veterans flyers, as we come up on 1 minute and 30 seconds from launch here this morning. On board is that Hubble Space Telescope that we have heard so much about, a magnificent machine that could see a firefly from 10,000 miles away. Once it gets up there above the Earth's atmosphere, it will spend 15 years sending back images of our universe, which should amaze and